The Endeavour was ready. Its sleek, silver hull gleamed under the bright lights of the launch bay. Crew members moved swiftly, checking systems, calibrating weapons, and preparing supplies for what was to be humanity's most important journey. The starship, a marvel of human engineering, was set to explore the mysterious signal, one that had inexplicably originated from deep within the Andromeda Galaxy, a signal encoded in Earth's ancient, long-dead language. The news had spread like wildfire across the galaxy, a discovery that might rewrite everything humanity believed about its origins. The signal wasn't just another random pulse from a distant star. No, this one carried an unmistakable pattern, a deliberate structure, a call to action. It was too significant to ignore. Commander Elena Marquez stood at the edge of the command deck, her eyes fixed on the expanse of stars visible through the observation window. The vastness of space always seemed to remind her of the weight of her responsibilities. Her crew, carefully selected for this mission, would be as much a part of her legacy as the journey itself. "I'll be with you in a moment," Elena said to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Alex Cross, who had just entered the room. His presence was familiar, a steadying force, but even he could sense the tension in the air. Cross nodded. "Everyone's ready, Commander. They're all wondering what this is all about, what we're about to uncover." Elena glanced back at him, her expression serious. "What we're about to uncover is going to change everything, for better or for worse." As the final preparations unfolded, Elena was briefed on the signal's origins. Dr. Myra Kale, one of the foremost human historians, had uncovered the core of the message. It was a cryptic map, a celestial map, encoded in human language, leading toward a region of space no human vessel had ever explored. The data seemed to imply that this was no ordinary anomaly. The coordinates pointed to a specific planet, one that didn't exist on any known map of the galaxy. The origin, Dr. Kale had called it, her voice trembling with a mix of excitement and dread. Where humanity began. And that was the part Elena couldn't fully comprehend. How could this signal possibly be linked to Earth's distant past? The planet had been reduced to a symbol in history books, its importance dimmed as humanity spread across the stars. But the signal had called them back to a place no one had thought to search. "Commander, we're ready for launch," came the voice of Captain Harrows, the ship's grizzled veteran pilot. His voice was steady, his eyes shadowed with the burden of years spent on countless battlefronts, but even he couldn't hide his curiosity about the mission. Elena nodded, turning to her team of hand-picked specialists. Dr. Kale, Captain Harrows, Rahak, the alien scholar with a peculiar obsession for human history, and the rest of the crew were all gathered, each with their own reasons for being here. Some sought answers, others power. But Elena knew better than to trust too easily. "Prepare for the unknown," she said, her voice carrying the weight of finality. "We're not just traveling to the edge of the galaxy. We're going to the heart of something that could reshape humanity's future forever. No matter what we find, we stick together. Understood?" A murmur of agreement spread through the crew. They all knew what was at stake. The Endeavour slowly lifted off, its engines purring with quiet power as it broke through Earth's atmosphere. Elena watched the planet shrink beneath her, its familiar blue and green swirls fading into the cold abyss of space. Somewhere, out there, a truth waited, one that could explain everything. And in the silence of space, the stars seemed to watch as humanity embarked on its last great expedition. As the Endeavour sailed deeper into the dark expanse of space, the crew settled into the rhythm of their journey. The hum of the ship's engines was a constant presence, a reminder that they were now leaving behind the familiar embrace of Earth. The silence between the crew members was deafening at times, as if each of them was caught between the gravity of the mission and the overwhelming unknown that lay ahead. Elena stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the star-strewn void outside. The coordinates they were following pulled them farther from civilization, past systems and planets humanity had never explored. It felt like the ship was a speck of dust in an endless ocean, drifting toward something far greater than any of them could fully comprehend. She had led missions before, but this one was different. This wasn't a search for new worlds or resources. This was a search for truth, the kind that could alter the course of human history. As she glanced over her shoulder, she found Dr. Myra Kale standing near the data console, examining the transmission of the signal once again. Her face was tense, the strain of the mission evident in her furrowed brow. "You don't trust it, do you?" Elena asked, her voice cutting through the quiet. Dr. Kale didn't look up, her fingers hovering over the controls as she sifted through layers of data. "I trust the signal, Commander. What I don't trust is the story it's trying to tell us. It's too clean, too perfect. A map leading to a place we've never heard of, from a source that shouldn't exist anymore." "And yet it does," Elena said quietly, her eyes scanning the readouts. "Yes, and that's the problem." Dr. Kale finally looked up, meeting Elena's eyes. "The more I study this, the more I believe there's something, or someone, intentionally keeping this information hidden. If this is connected to humanity's origins, there's something down there that someone doesn't want us to find." The room fell silent again, as if the weight of Kale's words settled over them all. Elena was no stranger to secrecy and hidden agendas, but there was something different about this mission. Something that gnawed at her instinctively. She couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't the only ones interested in what lay ahead. Captain Harrow's voice crackled over the intercom, breaking the tension. "Commander, I've noticed something odd. A ship just appeared on our long-range sensors. It's not responding to our hails." Elena's eyes snapped to the readout, her heart skipping a beat. They had been alone in this part of the galaxy. No known ships had passed this way in centuries. "Can you get a read on them?" Elena asked, her voice steady but her mind racing. "I'm trying. It's a strange pattern, almost like they're trying to remain undetected. But I'll get a lock on them soon enough." Before Elena could respond, the ship lurched, sending a brief but powerful tremor through the hull. The lights flickered momentarily, and alarms blared across the bridge. "What the hell was that?" Lieutenant Cross demanded, rushing to his console. Captain Harrow's voice cut through the chaos, calm as ever. "They fired at us. Shield generators are holding for now, but I don't think they intend to talk." Elena's stomach clenched as the reality of their situation set in. They had just crossed into uncharted territory, and it seemed someone, some force, did not want them to reach their destination. "Brace for impact," Elena ordered. The ship shook again, harder this time, as the Endeavor veered to avoid another barrage of enemy fire. The crew was no longer just on a scientific mission. Now they were fighting to survive. And whatever lay ahead in the darkness had just made it clear they weren't welcome. The Endeavor rocked violently as the enemy ship fired once more, sending ripples through the hull. Elena gripped the armrest of her command chair, her knuckles white. The crew scrambled, trying to counter the threat, but their attacker was too elusive, slipping in and out of the radar's range, like a shadow in the vastness of space. "Shields are at 70%, Captain Harrows reported, his voice taut with concentration. "If they keep this up, we won't last much longer." Elena's mind raced. They needed to outmaneuver this ship, whatever it was, and fast. But it wasn't just the immediate threat that had her on edge. The pulse of danger felt like more than a random attack. This was deliberate, a message. They were being hunted. "Get us out of here, Harrows. Plot a course to the nebula," Elena ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The nebula was their only chance. It offered cover, an unpredictable battlefield where they might be able to lose their attacker in the swirling clouds of ionized gas. Harrows didn't hesitate. "Aye, Commander. Hold on tight." The Endeavor lurched again as Harrows engaged the thrusters, the ship accelerating with a burst of speed that threw everyone against their seats. Outside, the stars blurred into streaks of light as they plunged into the heart of the nebula, its dense gases creating a swirling cocoon around them. But even the nebula wasn't a guarantee of safety. The ship's sensors were unreliable in the thick cloud, and every second, Elena could feel the threat of another attack looming over them. They were in the unknown now, far from any rescue, cut off from the rest of humanity, with only their wits and the strength of the crew to survive. "Damage report," Elena said, forcing herself to focus. "Minimal," Lieutenant Cross reported. "Hull integrity is holding. I've locked onto the enemy ship's trajectory, but they're moving erratically. It's like they're trying to predict our next move." Elena's suspicion was growing. This wasn't some rogue faction attacking them. It felt coordinated, calculated, as if someone knew exactly what they were doing and had been waiting for them. "Set up a decoy signal," she ordered. "Send a distress call, but make it a trap. We need them to think we're vulnerable." Cross's eyes widened. "You want to bait them?" "Yes, they're too focused on us to leave," Elena replied. "If they think we're weak, they'll come in for the kill, but we'll be ready." The crew worked swiftly, setting up the illusion of a crippled vessel. Cross sent out the decoy signal, manipulating the ship's internal systems to simulate a failing engine, while Harrows kept the ship's real movements unpredictable. The Endeavour danced between the roiling clouds of the nebula, hiding its true location behind the chaotic backdrop. Minutes stretched into an eternity as the crew waited, eyes fixed on the sensors, knowing that at any moment the enemy ship would make its move. And then it came. The enemy ship burst from the clouds, firing rapidly at the Endeavour. But the attack wasn't precise. It was disorganized, like they had expected the Endeavour to be in a different position. Harrows swerved the ship, expertly dodging the incoming fire, while Elena's heart pounded in her chest. "Now," Elena commanded. Lieutenant Cross hit the button, activating the Endeavour's own weapons. The ship's forward cannons fired with precision, their beams cutting through the confusion of the nebula. The enemy ship staggered under the assault, its shields flaring as they buckled under the force. But just as victory seemed within reach, a new signal interrupted their sensors, a sharp, high-pitched tone that made everyone on the bridge wince. "Another ship?" Dr. Kale asked, her voice filled with apprehension. "It's not a ship," Harrows said grimly. "It's something else, something bigger." Suddenly, a massive shape appeared on the horizon, a hulking, shadowy silhouette, easily 3 times the size of the Endeavour, with an armor-plated surface that seemed to absorb the light around it. Elena's pulse quickened. This wasn't a ship. It was something much worse, something ancient and vast, and it had found them. "Brace for impact," Elena shouted. The unknown had just become a nightmare. The ship loomed before them, a monolith in the vast expanse of space. Its massive form eclipsed the stars, casting an unnatural shadow across the Endeavour as if it had emerged from the very depths of the universe's forgotten past. The moment it appeared, every crew member on the bridge froze, eyes wide in disbelief. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just a ship, it was something older, something incomprehensible. Elena felt a cold shiver run down her spine. She could almost feel the weight of its presence pressing down on her, an oppressive force that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. This was no ordinary adversary. "Captain, can you identify it?" Elena's voice was calm, but the tightness in her chest betrayed her anxiety. Harris's fingers flew across the console, but the results were terrifying. No readings. It's like the ship doesn't exist in normal space. "My sensors can't get a lock on it. It's almost facing in and out of reality." Lieutenant Cross's voice came in a low whisper. "It's alive, isn't it? Whatever that thing is, it's more than just a ship." Elena didn't need to ask. She felt it too, the strange, unexplainable aura emanating from the behemoth. This wasn't some faction of hostile ships or a rogue alien race. This was something ancient, something that had lain dormant for eons, something that had awakened at the wrong moment. Shields are holding for now, Cross continued, his voice strained. But with a ship that size, we can't outrun it. We need a plan. Before Elena could respond, the hulking ship emitted a low, rumbling hum, a sound that seemed to resonate deep within the Endeavor's hull. The air in the command center felt charged with energy, and the lights flickered briefly, as if the ship itself was pulling at the very atoms around them. Then, a beam of intense blue light shot out from the ancient vessel, striking the Endeavor's shield with a deafening crack. The shield shimmered, barely holding under the force, and Elena felt a jolt through her body as the impact sent vibrations through the ship. Shields down to 50%. Cross shouted, desperately working the console to stabilize the system. If it hits again, we'll lose them. The massive ship fired again, this time more precisely, and the Endeavor shuddered violently. The crew braced themselves for the worst, but the attack didn't come. Instead, the beam was suddenly intercepted by an unexpected surge of energy. For a brief moment, the Endeavor was bathed in a crackling field of light, like some cosmic force was shielding them. "What the hell just happened?" Lieutenant Cross demanded. Elena stared at the redouts. There was something there, something in the nebula, something that had intervened. The energy signature didn't match any known human or alien technology. It was as if something had stepped in to protect them. But from what? And why? Before Elena could formulate a response, a voice crackled over the intercom. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakable. "You are not alone." The words echoed through the bridge, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Had they just heard that correctly? Was it a transmission, or was it something else entirely? Who said that? Elena demanded, but no one could provide an answer. The strange voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Suddenly, the massive ship shifted, its outline warping as if it was folding the very space around it. With a burst of energy, it vanished, leaving only the lingering echoes of its presence in its wake. The bridge crew stood frozen in stunned silence. The Endeavor was alive with questions, but the answers were elusive, fading like smoke in the cold vacuum of space. Elena's heart pounded in her chest. The threat was still out there, waiting. They had survived this encounter, but what else awaited them on their journey to the heart of the galaxy? And why had they been spared? "I don't like this," Captain Harrow said, his voice grave. "This feels like a warning, not an attack." Elena nodded, her mind spinning. They had narrowly escaped a death trap, but they couldn't ignore the ominous message. Whoever, or whatever, had just intervened wasn't just protecting them. It was trying to tell them something. "We're not alone," Elena murmured to herself. "And whatever we're about to find, we're not going to like it." The Endeavor drifted silently through the nebula, its crew shaken by the close call. Elena stood on the bridge, staring out into the vast, swirling clouds of gas and dust that surrounded them. The massive ship they had encountered was gone, but the uneasy feeling lingered in the air, thick and heavy. The mysterious message echoed in her mind. "You are not alone." It wasn't a warning. It was a declaration, and it was clear that something was watching them, something older and more powerful than they had ever imagined. "We've lost the signal," Lieutenant Cross reported, his fingers dancing across his console. "The unknown ship is no longer on our sensors. It's like it never existed." Elena rubbed her temples. The words made no sense. The entity had been real. The massive ship had been real. The energy surge had been real. And yet all traces of it had vanished as though the ship had dissolved into nothingness. Dr. Myra Cale, who had been silent for much of the ordeal, finally spoke. "It wasn't just a ship. It was something else. I've been studying the data we've collected, and the energy signature, it wasn't just advanced technology. It was something fundamentally different, something that manipulates space itself." Elena turned to face her. "You think it could be some kind of alien intelligence?" Cale shook her head. "No, This isn't just another alien species we haven't encountered yet. It's something that transcends what we understand. That ship, it might not even be a ship, not in the way we define it. It could be part of something far older, something that predates everything we know. The weight of Kale's words hit Alina like a ton of bricks. The journey they were on had been simple in theory. Follow the signal, uncover humanity's ancient past, and discover the truth about their origins. But now, it seemed the stakes had changed. Whatever had intervened was far beyond anything they could have prepared for. "We still need to push forward," Alina said, her voice steady, though doubt crept into her mind. "We've come this far. We can't turn back now." Captain Harrows nodded. "I'll plot a new course to the coordinates we received from the signal. But this time, we'll stay on full alert." Alina paced in front of the viewport, trying to steady her thoughts. What were they chasing? What had they uncovered? And more importantly, why had they been chosen to follow this path? "Commander," Cross interrupted her thoughts. "We've got something on the sensors. It's faint, but it's definitely a signal. Not like the one we've been tracking. This is different." Alina's heart skipped a beat. "Where is it coming from?" "It's coming from the system ahead," Cross replied. "It's deep inside the heart of the nebula." Alina's pulse quickened. "Is it another trap? Another attack?" "I don't think so," Cross said, scanning the readings. "It's not emitting any hostile frequencies. It's almost as if it's waiting for us." The hairs on the back of Alina's neck stood up. "What kind of signal?" "It's complex," Dr. Kale spoke up, her voice thoughtful. "It's not a simple distress call. It's almost like a message, but encoded in a way I've never seen before. If it's a trap designed to pull us in, not destroy us." A chill ran through Alina. "Then we go." She gave the order, and the Endeavour set its course, heading deeper into the nebula. The swirling clouds around them thickened, and the stars faded into a deep, endless black. Time seemed to stretch in the oppressive silence that followed. Every crew member was on edge, the tension palpable as the ship ventured farther into the unknown. Hours passed, and the Endeavour continued its path, each second feeling like a lifetime. The signal grew stronger, pulsing in the dark like a heartbeat. Alina couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap, or perhaps into something even worse. Suddenly, the stars ahead of them flickered, as if a veil had been lifted. The signal intensified, and before them appeared a massive structure, unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was colossal, its form stretched across multiple light years, the edges of it distorted by the warping of space itself. Alina's breath caught in her throat. This was it. This was what they had been searching for, the end of their journey. But as they approached the massive construct, a new question took root in Alina's mind. What had they just found, and who, or what, had been waiting for them all along? "Ready or not," Alina whispered, staring at the looming monument ahead. "Here it comes." The Endeavour drifted slowly toward the massive structure, its sheer size difficult to comprehend. It wasn't a traditional ship or space station. It was something else entirely, an enormous ancient artifact. It stretched across the expanse of space, its surface shimmering with a strange, otherworldly energy. From the outside, it seemed to be made of some kind of dark, metallic material, but there were no visible seams, no apparent joints or docking bays. It looked as though it had simply grown into existence, crafted from the fabric of space itself. Alina stood at the front of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the mysterious structure. The signal was pulsing, stronger now, as if calling them forward. There was no turning back. They had reached the end of their journey, and whatever lay ahead would change humanity's understanding of the universe. "Do you think anyone has ever been here before?" Lieutenant Cross asked, his voice tight with awe. "I don't think so," Dr. Kale replied, her eyes glued to the data streaming across her console. "The energy readings are unlike anything we've encountered. It's as though the structure has been hidden here for eons, completely off the grid. I don't even think the ancients knew about it." Elena felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The ancients. Everything they thought they knew about the origin of humanity, about the ancient signals and the lost civilizations, was crumbling before them. What if this structure was older than any of that? What if humanity had never truly known its place in the cosmos? "Captain, slow us down," Elena ordered. "We need to approach carefully. I want to make sure this thing doesn't have any surprises for us." Harris nodded and adjusted the controls, bringing the Endeavor into a more cautious orbit around the monolith. The ship's sensors were on high alert, scanning the structure for any sign of activity or danger, but the readings were puzzling. It was as if the monolith didn't exist in the same space-time as the rest of the galaxy. A low hum reverberated through the Endeavor, its source unclear. It wasn't coming from the monolith, but from within the ship itself. The entire crew could feel it, like a vibration in the bones, a sound that resonated deep within their chests. The lights flickered once more, and the air seemed to thicken with the anticipation of what was to come. Then a voice. Faint at first, distorted by static and echo, it filled the bridge once again. "Welcome, Earth." The crew fell silent. Elena's heart raced. This wasn't just a random transmission, it was directed at them, at humanity. "Did you hear that?" Cross asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I heard it," Elena replied, her voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline flooding her veins. "We're not alone, and they know we're here." Kale's face was pale as she scanned the data on her screen. "The signal, it's coming from inside the structure. The monolith, it's trying to communicate with us." Elena stepped forward, her mind racing. "Is it alive?" "It's something far beyond our understanding," Kale replied, eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. "This isn't just an artifact, it's a sentient being, and it's been waiting for us." The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. If this monolith was a sentient being, then everything they had thought they knew about the universe was wrong. It wasn't just a relic from the past. It was a conscious entity, one that had been hidden away for reasons unknown. The ship lurched suddenly, breaking Elena from her thoughts. "What the hell was that?" Harrows exclaimed, gripping the controls. "We've been pulled in," Cross said, his voice tight. "We're locked in." Outside, the monolith seemed to pulse, its surface rippling like a living organism. It was as if the structure had reached out, drawing them closer, enveloping the Endeavor in its gravitational field. "Get us free, Harrows," Elena shouted, her command cutting through the panic that had started to rise among the crew. "I can't. The field's too strong. It's like the monolith has its own gravity well. We're being dragged inside." The ship was no longer in control. The monolith had made its move. There was no escape now. The Endeavor was being pulled inexorably toward its center, toward whatever awaited them within the dark heart of the ancient structure. Elena braced herself as the ship's systems groaned under the pressure, the hull creaking as though it might bend under the force. The crew worked frantically, trying to regain control, but there was nothing they could do. The monolith had them in its grasp, and they were being pulled deeper into its mystery. "We're going in," Elena said, her voice low and resolute. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." And as the ship was pulled into the monolith, the darkness of the unknown swallowed them whole. The Endeavor plunged into the heart of the monolith, its hull groaning under the immense pressure as they were pulled deeper into the structure's gravitational field. Elena felt a strange sense of weightlessness, as if the laws of physics themselves were being distorted, twisted by the ancient, sentient being they had unknowingly awoken. The ship's systems flickered sporadically, and the once dominant hum of the engines was replaced by a faint, otherworldly resonance, like a heartbeat, deep and rhythmic. It was as if the monolith itself was alive, breathing in sync with the ship's movements, pulling them closer to the unknown. "Status report," Elena barked, snapping the crew to attention. "We're still being pulled in, but I'm trying to stabilize the ship's systems," Harrows responded, his voice strained. Nothing is responding the way it should. It's like we're in a completely different dimension. Dr. Kale, her eyes wide with a mix of fascination and fear, was studying the readouts on her console. It's not just space we're dealing with. I think the monolith is manipulating time as well. I'm detecting massive distortions in the fabric of reality. It's like we've entered another phase of existence. Alina frowned. Another phase? Do you mean we're in a different dimension? Kale nodded slowly, her voice tinged with awe. Yes, the monolith is. It's folding time and space in on itself. We've crossed some boundary, and I don't think we can go back. A sudden violent shudder rocked the ship, sending the crew lurching against their restraints. The lights flickered, then stabilized. A moment later, the ship's viewport flickered with a burst of static, revealing an entirely new scene outside. Gone was the swirling nebula. Instead, a vast, infinite expanse stretched before them. The stars had disappeared, replaced by swirling tendrils of light that twisted and writhed as though they were alive. The ship was surrounded by colossal structures, monolithic spires that seemed to reach toward the edges of reality itself. "We're inside it," Lieutenant Cross whispered, his voice barely audible, inside the monolith. Alina's breath caught in her throat. The enormity of their situation hit her like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just some ancient artifact. This was a gateway, an entrance into a realm beyond comprehension, and they were in it. "Are we still in the same universe?" Alina asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kale didn't look up from her console. "I don't know. The readings are inconsistent. But these structures, they're not like anything we've encountered before. They're beyond even the most advanced technologies." Harrows gripped the helm, his knuckles white. "We're not getting any closer to the core of the monolith. We seem to be stuck in this place, like we're caught in some kind of loop." Before anyone could respond, the ship suddenly lurched again, this time with much more force. The entire crew was thrown from their seats, the ship shaking violently as if it were being torn apart. The lights went out completely, plunging the bridge into darkness. And then, just as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The ship's systems hummed back to life, and the lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow on the crew's stunned faces. Alina shook her head, disoriented by the sudden change. "Report," she shouted. "We're in the core," Cross said, his voice strained as he struggled to regain his bearings. "At least, that's what it looks like. The monolith has opened up. There's a massive structure in the center. It's like a city, but it's not built by any civilization we've ever encountered." Alina's heart raced. She stood and approached the viewport, her gaze fixed on the sight before them. At the center of this strange reality stood a colossal city, its towering spires reaching into the fabric of space itself. The buildings shimmered with an eerie, pulsing light, their surfaces shifting and changing like liquid metal. It was a place beyond anything they had ever imagined, beyond anything that could exist within the boundaries of their known universe. This is impossible," Dr. Kale murmured, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and terror. This is not of this world. This isn't even of our universe." Alina stood silent, taking it all in. It wasn't just a city, it was something ancient, something timeless. The monolith had led them here for a reason, and they were standing on the precipice of an unimaginable discovery. The air grew thick with anticipation as the ship drifted closer to the city. The structures before them seemed to pulse with energy, each one exuding a faint glow as if alive. It was clear that they were no longer alone in this space, and whatever intelligence had designed this place was watching them, waiting. "We have to go inside," Alina said, her voice low, filled with resolve. The crew exchanged nervous glances, but they knew she was right. There was no turning back now. They had come this far, and whatever awaited them within the heart of the monolith, they had no choice but to face it head-on. As the Endeavor glided toward the city's towering gates, Alina felt a chill run down her spine. They had reached the end of their journey, but now they had to unlock the true secret of the monolith, a secret that could shatter everything they knew about the universe. And as they crossed the threshold into the unknown, Elena could only wonder what truths lay waiting on the other side. The Endeavor drifted toward the towering gates of the monolithic city, its hull vibrating with a low hum, as though the ship itself recognized the gravity of their arrival. Elena's heart pounded in her chest, the uncertainty of what awaited them making every second feel like an eternity. The crew stood silently behind her, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. They were about to step into a place beyond time, beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. As the gates loomed larger, their intricate patterns began to glow with an ethereal light. The ship's proximity seemed to activate them, causing the immense structures to open slowly, revealing a vast, circular chamber inside. The walls of the city shimmered with a soft, liquid-like quality, their surfaces undulating as though they were breathing in unison. It was as if the city itself had a consciousness, responding to their arrival. "Captain, we're being welcomed," Kale said, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and awe. "The structure is aware of us." Elena nodded, her mind racing. The monolith had been pulling them in, guiding them toward this place for a reason, but the true purpose was still unclear. What did it want, and why had it chosen humanity to uncover its secrets? "We don't have the luxury of waiting," Elena said, her voice firm. "Prepare to land the ship." Harrows quickly complied, maneuvering the Endeavor toward the center of the chamber. As the ship descended, the glowing walls of the city seemed to pulse in rhythm with the ship's movements, as though it was welcoming them into its heart. The city was vast, far larger than anything they had ever seen. Its architecture was both alien and strangely familiar, as though it were a blend of countless different civilizations' greatest achievements, all woven together into one seamless whole. As the ship landed softly on a glowing platform, the city seemed to respond with a final, harmonious resonance, a low, harmonic hum that reverberated through the entire structure. The ship's systems powered down with a soft click, leaving the crew in an eerie silence. "Let's move out," Elena said, gathering her composure. "We came here for answers, and we're going to get them." The crew quickly suited up in their exploration gear, the weight of their task pressing down on them. As they stepped out of the ship and onto the platform, the temperature seemed to drop, and the air thickened with a strange energy. The walls of the city pulsed with light, casting eerie shadows across the gleaming floor. Every step they took echoed in the vast emptiness, the silence pressing in from all sides. They walked deeper into the city, their footsteps reverberating in the stillness. The architecture became more intricate the further they went, with pathways curving and winding in seemingly impossible angles. The city stretched upward, its towers disappearing into the swirling light above. As they continued on, they encountered strange symbols etched into the walls, symbols that pulsed with an energy that seemed to speak directly to their minds. "This place, it's not just a city," Cross said, his voice awed. "It's a living organism. It's aware." "I think it's more than that," Kale replied softly, her eyes scanning the symbols. "This city is a library, a record of everything this civilization knew, and it's all stored in this place. The energy, it's a form of consciousness. It's trying to communicate with us." The crew paused before a massive door that loomed ahead, larger than anything they had encountered so far. The door was covered in the same glowing symbols, and as they approached, the symbols began to rearrange themselves, forming new patterns in front of their eyes. The air grew dense with anticipation, and Elena felt a strange tug at the back of her mind, as if the monolith itself was reaching out to her. The door opened without sound, revealing a vast chamber beyond. At the center of the room stood an immense crystalline structure, pulsing with a soft internal light. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a structure that seemed to transcend time and space. It radiated a power that made the very air hum with energy. The entire chamber seemed to vibrate in tune with the structure, as though it were alive. "This is it," Elena whispered, her voice reverberating through the room. "This is the heart of the monolith." The structure flickered, and a holographic projection materialized before them. It was a figure, tall and ethereal, its form made of light and energy. It spoke, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "Welcome, children of Earth. You are the first to reach the heart of the monolith. We have watched your journey with great interest, and now you stand before the culmination of all that we have sought to preserve." The crew stood motionless, the weight of the words pressing down on them. The figure continued. "This city, this monolith, is a repository of knowledge, a testament to a civilization that existed long before your species took its first steps. We have waited for millennia for one worthy of uncovering the secrets of the stars. You, the humans, have proven yourselves resilient, capable, and bold. You are the inheritors of our legacy, the new stewards of the galaxy." Elena's heart raced. Why us? Why humanity? The figure's form shimmered, and it spoke again. "Because you, of all the species in the galaxy, possess the one thing we could never replicate: unwavering resolve. The strength to overcome even the greatest of challenges, the drive to push beyond your limits, and the will to build a future from the ashes of the past. It is your destiny to carry forth the knowledge of the stars, to safeguard the future of the galaxy itself." The hologram faded, leaving the crew in stunned silence. The monolith's purpose was clear. Humanity was destined to be more than just survivors. They were to be the architects of a new era, guardians of the galaxy, keepers of the knowledge of an ancient civilization. Elena looked at her crew, the weight of their new responsibility sinking in. They had come to the end of their journey, but in truth, they had only just begun. The universe was theirs to explore, to protect, and to shape, and the Endeavor was their ship, the symbol of humanity's future. The final revelation was clear. Earth's journey had come full circle. From the cradle of life to the farthest reaches of the cosmos, humanity's destiny was now intertwined with the stars.